Which future event?
Yeah, which future event? You always say future events. I've heard you before.
So, okay, so let me make it.
Yeah, no, I'm interested. I'm not trying to.
Right.
I'm just trying to find what is the future event you always go on about that he's predicting.
So what I'm saying is that when the Quran was being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad,
Yeah.
it was being revealed in a way which was responsive. So the Prophet would be asked a question, yes, and he would answer in a certain way. So for example, in chapter number 2, he's asked like 5 or 6 or 7 different questions. I'll give you one example. They say, yes, يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر. They ask you about drinking and gambling, yeah?
Right, yeah.
And he's asked to respond to these individuals that ask him a certain question in the form of the Quran. They ask him again, يسألونك عن الأهلة. They ask you about the moons, the new moons.
Right.
قل, and then you're not saying the new thing is mentioned. So another question is asked, يسألونك عن القتال. All of these things, yeah? They ask you about this.
Where's the future event?
So
You mentioned a future event that he actually predicted.
No.
I want an actual world event that he predicted.
I like that. That's a different question.
It's a fair question.
But I'll put two of them. What I was saying is that he couldn't have known what he was going to be asked, therefore he couldn't have known how he's going to respond. Do you understand that?
I mean, I can predict that we may. So people today,
how could he put the Quran
but
in
people
such a-
today here, just like you're standing here, with the technology you have around your neck and whatever, can probably get an idea what we might be doing in 100 years' time, because the pace of technological revolution or whatever. I mean, we're getting the driverless car now. We're getting the driverless car and all this thing now, Ian. We're getting the driverless car now. All right. So no, I'll stay where I am. It's okay. the driverless car. We're getting all this technology. We now fly in aircraft. We now have 800 people going on a double-decker aircraft. So what I'm saying to you is, if you actually look at it logically, man is progressing. Okay. So I'm sure some of us today can probably predict what might be the situation in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time.
I like that.
So there's nothing amazing that it happened. I'm not denying that the book was well written, whatever.
No.
The fact is, I think your point is it's a man-made thing. Is that what you're saying? That's what I think it is. That's how I see it.
I don't think you've comprehended the argument well enough, right? Not to disrespect, obviously. I think you're making a fair point from your perspective. But what I'm saying is, I was making an argument that related to the linguistic miracle of the Quran. And I made the argument that anyone could understand, which was an argument that related to the structural interconnectedness of the Quran. And I said to my friend that actually what's going on with the Quran is that the Quran was not revealed in chronological order. So you know how you got chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 of the Quran? That's not the way the Quran was revealed. It was revealed chapter 96, verses 1 to 4, then chapter 73, then chapter 74. But then afterwards, the Prophet was instructed on how to put this all together into a book, Quranic form, by We Believe God, right? Now, anyways, this is part of
how was this communicated to him?
through the angel Gabriel.
The angel Gabriel came. So the angel Gabriel was almost the messenger of God, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly, yeah.
So why couldn't God communicate directly to Muhammad?
Yeah, because
Why did it have to come via a messenger?
He chose to do that through the messenger, through the angel Gabriel.
Yeah.
For many different reasons, actually, which is a different discussion, which we're going to get into.
Anyway, the main thing I wanted to know was,
So that was one
why
thing,
is it
but I'll
impossible
come to
that
your
you
second-
can't construct a book?
Yeah.
Why is it impossible?
Why is it not any different from man?
Right. So what I'm saying to you, probabilistically, because we believe in, as human beings, we're probabilistic creatures, yeah? What I'm saying is, if I flip 2 coins, obviously that's going to have a certain probability. If I flip 10, it's going to have a certain probability. I'm applying the same logic to the Quranic discourse. What I'm saying is that the interconnectedness of the Quran, despite the fact that it was a responsive revelation, it was revealed in different times and he couldn't have known what people were going to ask him, makes sense from a chronological ordering and a responsive ordering.
But the only reason you know this, if I may respect also to you, and I understand the only reason that you would know this is because people before you have come and told you this story.
I've looked at it myself.
No, but you were not there to know this. So what I'm trying to say to you, you can only rely on the books that are there. Okay. So if there's a book which you're following religiously, if you want to say, or saying it's such a miracle it came from God. None of us here today, in this timescale of 2016, know that this thing even exists, because in our lifetime,
What's this thing?
God. There's no. We see nature, we see whatever. So what I'm trying to say to you, what I do see, what I do see physically, is human beings creating incredible films, incredible technology, amazing books, making works of art, sculptors to literary people, whatever. So what I'm saying is, it may well be a genius text that for 1600 years, whatever it is, has gone around the world brilliantly and been brilliantly publicised. And I don't mean any disrespect by this. We're both the same. We're both the same here as human beings. Forget who we are. We're human beings. Human beings follow each other like sheep. Okay. Now we do tend, it's a human thing that we
Yes.
will just follow the leader, follow my leader, follow my leader. So if you get a good enough leader, like we've seen in history, people will follow it.
That's
So
right.
stories propagate, they continue.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, from my perspective, and I think I'm not talking to him, but he's sort of on my angle, this is why I came into this,
No, go ahead,
to me, it just looks like another man-made created tale with a great orator somewhere with people
So,
who follow
do
it.
you mind if I answer
I would go along with that.
No, that's fine. Thank
If
you.
I said anything you don't, that's fine.
First of all, what you've said is it just looks like X, Y, Z. Now, it just looks like it's called an assertion. For an assertion to have any merit, it must be substantiated with what we call evidences. Now, what I'm trying to provide you as my fellow interlocutor is what I would call evidences. So we talked about the parts of the linguistical structural milk of the Quran.
Private revelation is not
Do you mind if I
evidence.
just finish one thing that I just want to get back to one thing? You asked me a question directly, and I want to answer you this question
Yeah, sure,
directly.
I'll answer
You
it.
asked me where in the Quran is there a direct prediction of the future? And I'm going to give you not one, not two, but 3 different examples because you seem like a very genuine person. In chapter number 30
I've
of
got
the
to go. See you. Have a good
Take
night.
care, my
That's
friend.
it, right?
Chapter number 30 of the Quran, which is Surah Rum, the beginning of the chapter starts Alif Lam Mim Ghulibat Rum, that the Romans had been defeated. Now, if you look at history, at the time of the Prophet, 7th century Arabia, there were 2 great empires, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. What had happened is that the Roman Empire had been defeated. What the Quran had asserted in these verses in chapter number 30 of the Quran is that the Romans would be victorious, and it gives you actual years and times. It says from 3 to 9 years. Yes? And it says that day the Muslims will rejoice. It says that day the Muslims will rejoice. So it gives us 3 or 4 different things, and it says it will be in a nearby land. It says that there will be a victory of the Romans over the Persians, and it will be in a nearby place, and it will be 3 to 9
The
years.
Romans came a lot before this.
Historically wrong.
But the Romans came along.
Historically wrong.
The
Historically wrong.
Romans came along before this.
Six.
Before what
On the 6th century came the
The
Muslims.
Romans came before
The
Islam
fifth.
came and the
Historically
Quran.
wrong.
didn't
Yeah,
they?
but it was no. Hold on.
So it's all
No, the Roman. Wait, hold on. Excuse me. The Roman Empire. When did it dissolve?
Well before.
When did it dissolve?
It's back in Jesus' time, so
No,
you're talking about
when did it-
2,000 years
When
ago.
the barbarians.
I'm testing your history now because
Barbarians invaded.
I'm asking you a question. I'm testing your history right here and right now.
Historically wrong.
When did the Roman Empire dissolve?
I can't remember the exact date.
Somewhere in the 1800s. The Roman Empire continued on, but it was ceremonially.
Well, yeah, into modern times.
Yes.
And then
Now, if you look
the Roman
at
Empire's now
the
Italy,
Roman
for
Empire
example, and places like that.
continued
Yeah.
from Jesus'
I'm talking
time
about from the,
throughout the centuries and existed at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And there was what you would call in history books. Go and look into the English Western history books. The Roman Sassanid Wars. Yeah.
We saw the end of the Roman Empire, like we might see the end of a lot of situations now.
What I'm saying to you
That's what I'm saying.
is that historically, what I'm saying is not just concurrent from our textual understanding, from our narrative, but it's concurrent from a Western perspective. This is in Western books, right? If you
Right.
go to Waterstones and you ask the librarian or whatever you got, the guy that's selling the books, I want something on the Roman Sassanid Wars. They'll give you something on the Roman Sassanid Wars, and it will be at the same time with the Prophet Muhammad. The point I'm making to you is here.
But we might be able to predict the end of certain regimes now, for example, in the times
but
that
look,
we're working on now.
what I'm saying to
Just
you
because we assume things, because we might see
So the
something.
Quran made the following prediction. In chapter number 30 of the Quran, the first 5-6 verses, it made the prediction that the Roman Empire would defeat the Persian Empire 3 to 9 years at the time of that revelation. So it will be from 3 to 9 years, and it will be in a nearby land, and that the Muslims would rejoice. Now, if we have a probability theory. Oh, sorry.
Muslim was very weak
Oh yes,
at that
sorry.
time. Very, very
Yes, yeah. So the Roman Empire was very weak at that time, which was another important point. Now my point is we have a probability theory, machine here. We're putting in these 4 variables. Variable number 1, the time period. Variable number 2, the geography. Variable number 3, who will be happy, who will not be happy. Because it says the Muslims will rejoice. And variable number 4, if you want to accept this understanding, is who is going to beat who, right? And by the way, there's a 5th variable, because some scholars say, and this is a new thing, but some scholars say that even there's a geological variable, because it happened in a part of the earth which was very low in terms of the geology, the geological disposition of that place. Now, All of those 5 things happened exactly the way the Quran said it would happen. Now, I want to tell you something, right?
But so far, the Roman Empire has collapsed. That's where I got to from you.
The
What was the other geological issue that happened?
I said it
What
was
the other geological.
The Roman Empire was on the brink of collapse. The Roman Empire was on the brink of the Roman Empire was on the brink of collapse. The Quran predicted that in 3 to 9 years that it would come back and defeat the Persian Sassanid Empire. Yes. And therefore, this prophecy, you could say, or this prediction, materialized exactly the way the Quran.
Is there any prediction now for modern times then?
Absolutely. I like the questions. He's got good questions. I like his questions. But so because you did admit, the first question you said was, have you got any predictions? So I said yes, the prediction.
You're telling me, and I'm
no, fair enough. So now you've asked the
now I want to bring it into a modern context.
I like the point.
Because this world at the moment is in a very interesting situation.
Yes.
You have states in the names of religions.
Yes.
Everything from a Jewish state to Islamic states to Christian states in certain places. You have atheist states.
Yes.
We have Stalinist states.
Yes.
So where does this all fit into the predictions that were made?
I like your question, and I'm going to answer your question directly by saying to you that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in a hadith that was narrated in the book of Ahmad ibn Hanbal was a hadith person. He said that after me there'll be 30 years of Khilafah Rashidiyya, which is the rightly guided caliphs. We know for a fact from history that there was exactly 30 years of rightly guided caliphs. He predicted this. He said that there will be 30 years, and we know that the 4 caliphs, which are Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, if you add all of their reigns together, it's exactly 30 years. He said after that what will happen is that you will have a monarchy. Yes, we're talking here about the context of the Islamic states or Islamic governance.
But there has been kings within the Islamic states.
So as we know, after the Khilafah Rashidiyya, there was a monarchy. He said after that, there will be and the words I use are like people that are grabbing on in an authoritarian way to power or to the possessions.
The monarchy is legal?
Yes.
The monarchy?
Pardon?
Is legal in Islam?
No, I'm just talking about what it says in the hadith. Prediction.
No, because...
I'm talking about predictions.
Predictions, yeah. So after that...
He said they predicted world events.
So, as we know, there was a dictatorship, or there are dictatorships in, the Muslim world for the most part. This is a prediction, but you say this is not specific, my friend. So fine, okay, I agree with you. So the Prophet went even further. What did he say?
Otherwise our prediction going to get stuck.
I like it. He said that the Muslims will, he said the Muslims will conquer...
About the Quran.
Yes, he said the Muslims will conquer Misra, Egypt.
Yeah.
He said the Muslims will conquer the Roman Empire. And he even went further. He said that when you conquer the Roman Empire, yes, he was telling one of the Sahaba, he said you're going to have, yes, the jewels of one of the kings then. So he went so far in his prediction. The Prophet ﷺ, he predicted so many things that, I'm just starting with the geographic and political things, and we'll go into some more sociological things. He predicted in some riwayat, as in Ibn Kathir's book, Al-Bidayah al-Nihaya, yes, he said that he predicted, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ predicted that the Muslims will go into India, Al-Hind, and he said also Sindh, which is Pakistan. He predicted that the Muslims will be in Mashariq al-Ard wa Magharibiha, that they'll basically expand eastward and westward. He predicted, and by the way, this is a hadith which is sahih, a prophetic saying which is sound. He predicted furthermore. So these are the things which are predicted by the Prophet. Now I want you to imagine something. Someone who has a very small following of 10, 20, 30 people in his early days is making predictions that Islam will spread to these massive empires and will go into the houses of all of these people. In fact, there's a hadith that says Islam will enter the house of every person. What does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. There's even a hadith that says that there will be like a light in every house and it will be a fitna for the people, which means the Quran will have a trilling effect.
Let me ask you a question.
The scholars have said it's TV.
I'm taking a lot on board there.
It's TV. So go ahead.
Because I can now. Thank you.
That's just some of the things. There's so many.
Right. Forget the religious angle for a minute. Put the human angle. You're a human. I'm a human. Right. Put the angle in. So a lot of mind control goes on in humanity. We're designed by our genetic makeup to be very, very good at mind controlling each other in certain ways and arguing and debating like we are now, which is great.
I think this is more of a discussion, which I like.
Yeah, it's a discussion. The issue for me is that then a prediction or a call to war? against those forces. In other words, if all these predictions of Islam will take this, Islam will take that, Islam will take whatever, it was if somebody is clever on a mind controlling literature, writing mind controlling literature at the time, it's almost like a call to arms. It's almost like onward Christian soldiers, for example. I'm not going to keep going on Islam just to say, to be fair, I'm balanced here. Onward Christian soldiers fighting us to war and the whole thing. So religions have stood up, and how would you get, like, if you go back to English literature, if you go back to Henry IV, for example, which I know well from Shakespeare, and it's once more into the breach, dear friends, once more, right? Close them all up with our English dead. Basically, it was a call to war. But what it is, you can wrap it up by saying, well, one day, we can say one day Britain will have this, and this, right? And it's almost like, we want this, and this. Do you see where I'm playing? So I'm not saying it is risen, because I wouldn't be able to prove this anyway, either way, because we're not in that time zone. But that's why I put the doubt of this whole thing, putting the human psyche into religions, not just Islam, religions in general, or controlled, but religions. If you then move to fascism, if you move to the mind camps, if you move
By the way, I don't disagree with you.
So you see the issue.
By the way,
you see that why sometimes people will come with a view.
By the way,
that it's slightly different way why this is coming about.
Let me tell you something, right? I like the way you put that, and I'll tell you something. I think a lot of what you're saying is actually true. Not about the call to war, because the call to war is not a call to war. How do we know it's not a call to war? Because it was khabar.
Following
right, I can see what you're saying. Right. And by the way, I'll tell you why it would not make sense for it to be a call to war. In addition to having been put in a khabar form, which means it's kind of like a narration of what will happen. It's a predicted form in the Quranic, in the Arabic language. In addition to that, the state of the Muslims at that time was that they were being bombarded, yes, by all of the forces, and they couldn't even, you know, Medina is like it's in Saudi Arabia. They couldn't even hang on to that. I mean, there were times where they were not being able to hang on to that plot of land, right? And so for someone to make predictions in that context, or being of Muslims going here and there, would seem a little bit above that person's pay grade, really, yes?
However, that's the debate.
Yes.
I don't know. That's the debate.
No, but what I was going to say was
very clever people.
Your point is correct.
Very clever people.
You're right to say that.
Very clever people.
I'll admit to you right now. Religions control people. But it's not just religions that control people, it's human ideologies that control people as well.
It's human in there.
So me and you both agree.
So you can't have religion without the human issues, because the human issues what bring the religion in the first place.
I accept that. So I don't disagree with you on that. I think that religions do have a part in controlling people.
Yeah.
And I think that human ideologies, like even liberalism, funny enough, I mean, don't forget liberalism was spread by the sword. Napoleon was a liberal. You know, the British Empire were liberals.
Yes,
the Americans are liberals, but they annihilated the native population there. So I don't think I disagree with you that people that have an ideology, yes, could potentially.
I mean, this country you're standing in now, having your freedom of speech at Hyde Park, has come from an ideology that the British had, based in effect on a Christian, Anglo-Christian history, based on, I mean, we have a religion here that's based on a king who was quite a nasty cup of tea, basically, wasn't it?
The point,
so you should look at this whole thing.
But yes, so I've just given you one set of predictions. I'm going to give you another set, because these are all sets of predictions which relate to the you could say the international relations landscape. Yeah. There's another landscape, which is the sociological landscape, which the Prophet predicted certain things. He said there will come a time. First of all, he predicted the fact that interest or riba will be widespread, which is obviously now the capitalist system is based on riba, on interest, yeah.
On money, yeah.
Yeah, not on the fact that you have exploitative interest usury systems.
Yeah, because I know in like Islam you have non-interest bearing banks. Yeah, I know all that.
That's right. So that's one. Number two, listen to this interesting prediction. The Prophet predicted there will come a time where sexual fornication outside of the precincts of marriage will be so widespread that new diseases, he said, لم تكن موجودة من قبل. He said diseases which were not there before will come and inflict
that could have been seen.
Anyways,
because
so
there already were diseases. So
but this is something which is a prediction of the future, right?
I'm trying to work out where you got it.
Right, it's a good question. Where did you get this from? So the fact that diseases, sexually transmitted diseases, new sexual transmitted diseases, this is something which is predicted by the Prophet Mohammed. The Prophet Muhammad he also predicted there will come a time where women will change their dress code. Because if you think about the medieval period until now, there was a completely different dress code. Even Christian women were dressed in a certain different way. He called women as going to be dressed Athiest, meaning they'll be dressed fully, but actually it will be seeming like they are naked, meaning either they wear transparent clothing or they wear very tight clothing. And this, of course, is what we see, isn't it? We just walk around the park.
I mean, if I may say so, they did wear quite tight clothing in the Greek empires and things like that. And so what I'm trying to say is, because we've got a period this, haven't we? We're not period in 2016. We've got a period back in 600, 500, whatever it was. And I suppose at that point, if you look at the history of the empires that they had at that point as well, and what they were seeing, there were a lot of fornications going on. If you think about the Roman Empire, the Roman orgies, and goodness knows what went on,
yes.
they were the best. If you want to have a party in those days, go to the Romans. They were great at it. Okay, but you know what I'm trying to say.
What we're talking about is dress code. We're talking about dress code.
Dress code is there for a reason. The dress code is almost a controlling issue on the woman to ensure the woman doesn't become that one with the short skirt and whatever. That could be prey or whatever. I understand why they're brought about.
Let me tell you something.
But are they man-made? This is my point.
Look, as I said to you before,
God, mate, that's how I see it.
it's fine. You can say you can see
It's the God bit I'm missing.
But the thing is, when a prediction materializes, we have to call a spade a spade. This thing the Prophet said, this thing happened. You see what I mean?
I mean, in a generalised way, it's happened. I can see what you're
So, and you have to understand something. When someone makes a prediction, if I'm going to stand here and make 1,000 predictions of the future, 1,000, or let's say 500, or 100 even, I'll make 100 predictions of the future, yes? Or I'll make predictions that certain things are definitely going to happen.
So what's the prediction for now?
So, I mean, 2016.
Well, what did the Prophet Muhammad predict for now?
Well, interestingly enough, there are certain things that...
My lifespan, that's all. I mean,
Interestingly enough, there are certain things that are mentioned in Hadith which relate to our context today. So let me give you a couple of examples. Once again, going to the book of Ahmad, the Hadith book of Ahmad, he said that basically the nations, has almost come time that the nations, the non-Muslim nations, will divide the Muslim nations and they will split the food, the Muslim nations as if it's food on a dinner table. And we know for a fact that at the time of, in the early 1900s, with George Picot and Mark Sykes, that there was this exact reality, that there was the splitting, literal splitting of the Muslim empire, the then Ottoman Empire, which then the colonial powers came to take control of. So even today's context could be related. The Prophet ﷺ, he also said that the Turks and the Arabs will fight, and this is related by Ibn Kathir in his book Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, that the Turks and the Arabs will fight, which did happen in the early 1900s when the Ottoman Empire was reaching its end. The Arabs fought basically the Turkish people. So once again, this is
what you've done, if I can say, because I understand that you've given it in a context, and I thank you for this because I find it very interesting, and I can understand where you stand, and maybe you'll see where I stand because of maybe our different routes to this path. Let's put it that way. So we've gone down different routes to get to where we're standing together now, right? So therefore, my route's going to be different to the upbringing maybe you've had or how you've learned. This is why we are the sum of how we are, right? So I try to have a wide view. That's why I try to find out these things. I've travelled a lot. I've been to Muslim countries. I understand many. I've been to Sunnis and Shiite countries and all sorts. I understand.
You've been to Iran?
I haven't been to Iran, but I've been to the Maldives. I've been to the most.
Which one is Shia that you've been to? So I'm interested.
I've been to Saudi Arabia.
That's not Shia.
No, I've been to the Maldives, right? That's Sunni, okay. And I've been to Jordan, and I've been to Egypt.
No Shia countries there, right? But anyways,
but you see there's a conflict between the old religion.
Yes,
it's
that's
like the Jews have the Reform, the Liberal, the Orthodox, right? And they're all punching each other.
mentioned in a hadith as a prediction.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? So you're talking from a Shia angle, I'm talking about Islam in general. This is the problem.
Now we go back to
our... going to Christianity, you'd not be having an argument whether we're Catholics or Protestants. It's all like...
No, I'm happy that you mentioned that because actually...
I'm trying to think if I have been...
mentioned
Turkey, Shia?
No, Sunni.
That's Sunni as well, isn't it?
And by the way, I'm happy that you mentioned Turkey because one of the hadiths, one of the predictions, once again...
I've been to Iraq, no, not Iraq.
Let me tell you something. One of the predictions is that the Muslims will, and the actual word that's used is Constantine. Constantine is modern day Istanbul. Obviously at that time, it wasn't part of Constantinople, right? At that time, it wasn't part of the Muslim Empire. But the Prophet predicted that the Muslims will overtake this place, but they will do so in a way which is non-violent. They will go to the doors of that place and they will be screaming Allahu Akbar or shouting Allahu Akbar and going into the place.
Sorry, I went off my own track.
The point is, look how many predictions. If we put this into a tally,
hang on a minute.
Let's use probability theory.
We've got one issue, and the issue is, I understand that, but we still live in a world, okay, where there are Christian interests, Jewish interests, Muslim interests, and we haven't taken into account the whole of China and Asia that believes in Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism. You've got, I went to Lantau Island a few years ago near Hong Kong, and it's got the biggest Buddha in the world, okay, and they actually pray to this blooming thing, it's great, right? I've been to Mauritius, which has, the goddess Shiva and all these Hindu religions. So what I'm saying is that we seem to be limiting these predictions within the context, you understand, of an Islamic issue. I want to know on a global issue how Islam's suddenly going to take over China, and have you predicted that they're going to take over the Japanese continent that has a completely
There's no
different
prediction of that.
Why? Because that's part of the world. There is a Stalinist state just to the north of Korea, for example.
Yes.
The Islamic state Islam doesn't seem to be predicting the end of that.
Yeah, no.
So if it really is, as you say, a prediction that Islam will spread around and do all these, it's not really taking the whole world, it's taking a bit of it. It's not really because if you want to take on 800 million Chinese, that's up, you understand what I'm trying to say. The Chinese are not converting to Islam, the Japanese are not converting to Islam.
That's right.
But you understand what I'm saying, but as a percentage of them, they still very much.
But the point I'm making to is is away from the politics. I'm saying to you clearly, an evidence of the Islamic message as being a true message is the predictions that the Quran has and that the Prophet has. And that what I'm saying is if you put them all together, I've mentioned probably about 30 to you right now, but I can mention more.
Have you read like Nostradamus?
Yes, I'm happy that you
about
mentioned
Hitler and Christ
very
and
good.
all that. Very interesting.
So the question is, did Nostradamus get everything right?
Well, he got Hitler right.
He got some of that right, and
He got Hitler right, he got Jesus right.
But he got some of it very wrong. The point is, when the Quran, this is the thing, this is the point I want you to remember. When the Quran makes a claim, now if I'm making a claim, it's very dangerous for someone to make a risky claim like this. I want you to remember, when the Quran or the Prophet makes a claim about a future event, that especially if the Quran or the Sunnah is telling us that it's going to happen within a certain time in a certain place, if it doesn't materialize, do you know how much that puts into jeopardy the Quranic and Islamic message? If I said to you right here, look, sorry to do this, but I'm a magician. I know the future. Look, the next who's playing now? Maybe in the future, I don't know. Like there's no one playing now. The Premiership is on and the cup
Started.
It's on yet.
As you speak now, the Emirates backed Arsenal are playing at the Emirates Stadium this
If I said to you, look, Arsenal.
I've just given my tickets away to a disabled person.
Exactly 5-1, and they're and who's going to score? Arsenal's going to win 5-1. This person's going to score. That person's going to score in this minute. That minute.
That's Paddy Powell's problem, isn't it?
Paddy Powell. Okay, so if I go to William Hill and I say this, my question is, how much money am I going to make?
Sorry.
Big money. If I'm going into that depth of a prediction, because the odds are so unbelievably against me. Now imagine if I say this and it goes wrong. I want you just to imagine for a second. If I say, look, you know what's going to happen? Arsenal's going to win 5-1, and this person's going to score, and that person's going to score, and it's going to be an own goal there, some whatever, and this is going to happen. And if it doesn't come to materialize in the way that I've said, my question is, how much would that put into jeopardy my authority? Completely, that's it. I'm finished.
The thing is,
no longer can you say that.
There are aspects of predictions that you've mentioned, and I'll still go back on the point though, that the world is full of people making predictions, okay? And some will say, look, we said this was going to happen. There's people within the New World Order now who have been doing amazing scams on people. They're taking money on the back of there's going to be a New World Order, or they're going to suddenly fund humanity now from all these gold that apparently is in things we can never see where the gold is. It's all like, and all these things are made, and they make predictions, and how they do it, and how the human beings work is when something happens, they backtrack on it and go, look, we said this would happen, and they throw something in that they may have said which was completely off kilter, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
but it looks as if it was them that predicted it.
Right.
So again, whether you like my cynicism or not, you have to understand that because I live in a world of that is what I've seen in 55 years of life.
Yes.
And I wasn't around
I
in.
thought 55? No.
Thank you very much.
I thought you were going to say.
I was born over there, actually.
No.
I was born in Welbeck Street, actually. Don't worry. But what I'm trying to say, 55 years old, okay? Now I don't mind. I don't mind my age 55. I'm 55 years old. Next time I bring my passport, I'll show you approval. 55 years old, okay? So what I'm saying is, my 55 years of life experience, this is really what I've got to go on, let's be honest. I'm listening to, I've been schooled in religion, I listen to religion, I listen to debate, I travel the world, I see all this. people do this.
I accept you. I accept what you're saying. You're right.
And this is why
You're right.
I can't really detach this
No, you're right.
from anything else that I've seen
Skepticism,
happen.
I think, you know, there's a place for skepticism. What I'm saying to you,
I'm
listen.
not saying it's not clever.
Listen
I'm
to
saying
me.
that
No,
it's
listen
really
to
just
me.
man-made.
What I'm saying to you, when it comes to the Quranic miracles, I've mentioned like I don't know how many Sunnah miracles, but let's stick with just the Quranic miracles for now.
Right.
The one that I've mentioned to you about the Romans, there's another one I'll mention to you. I haven't mentioned to you before.
Right.
I'll mention to you right now. The Muslims were at war with the non-Muslims, the pagan Arabs. The Quran, in no more than 2 different or 3 different places in the Quran, it tells the Muslims that they will reign victorious over those pagan Arabs who are oppressing them, etc. Yeah, and that they will overtake that part of the land which they were originally expelled from, which was Mecca. Right? So, for example, in chapter number 48 of the Quran, it says how. It tells you how they're going to do it. They're going to come in. It says مُحَلِّقِينَ رُؤُوسُهُمْ وَمُقَصِّرِينَ لَا يُخَافُونَ. It says that they're going to go in, shaving their head, and some of them will be trimming their head, and they're going to have no fear because that's what they do before Hajj, meaning they're going to go do Hajj.
Yeah, go to Hajj, yeah.
Yeah, so the point really is, imagine if that was wrong. Imagine if Mecca was never overtaken by the Muslims and was never reclaimed by the Muslims. That would have humiliated the Islamic message. It would have completely put to jeopardy. Do you understand the point?
You know, I get where you don't know. I get where you are, okay? That's
Yes.
why I'm being respectful, because I'm getting where you are, and I get why you're saying what you are. But the thing is that I'm still in the middle. I'll tell you why, because the issue for me...
I like it. Now you're still in the middle because before you were there.
No, when I say I'm in the middle, hang on a minute.
That's something.
Mind control. This is what we're
No, it's
talking
not
about.
mind control.
Right, no, because I know what I'm saying is, of
Don't
course
be
I'm going to
scared.
come into...
I know you're feeling
I come
hypnotised,
into a
but-
conversation, not from a point of arrogance or dogma, but I come into a conversation to see the sight.
No, I like the way you speak.
But unfortunately for you, I haven't moved to this side of it because the reason is
yet.
I understand. Now, what I would do if I'm going to say to the religions in general and also Islam, if I can be complimentary about it,
Yes.
is very clever if it's got all these people to believe in this for all these. Hang on, very clever, great mind games. That's how I see it. Very clever, literary. You know, somewhere in there it was written by scribes, wasn't it? Somebody had to write that so you can go and buy it down Oxford Street and get a free copy or whatever. Somebody had to physically write it. Right. Now the bit I'm going to miss, which I know is the elephant, she's called an elephant, my mom, but the elephant in the room is I get in every religion that there's a Bible, even in Sikhism, who were a few weeks ago. I understand they have the gurus and all that. And then I go, well, where do they get it from? And they always say they got it from this higher entity. For me, and I think this is where we're going to disagree, and I don't think we'll be able to solve it today, is I don't get the higher entity spoke to this individual. I just think it's the words of those individuals.
Okay, but what I'm saying to you,
That's what-
that's what you believe.
So it starts from humanity,
Right.
is then propagated like
Yes.
that in modern times, like Mein Kampf, like Karl Marx or whatever, great orators, great books, followed by millions around the world, changed countries, changed regimes.
Yes.
There are people today, and you are still talking about Islam today because it was very well promoted and propagated.
right.
That I'm not denying. What I'm
By the way,
saying
that's an
is,
interesting point because you know.
I haven't got the bit above it, the God bit talking to that.
Listen to me.
For me, because I just see humans write, create,
I want to say to you because I think this is where we obviously going to have
and
to
write
part
stories.
ways. What I'm saying to you is we have to put our subjective biases to the side.
Well, it's not supposed to be biased, it's just I'm telling you
We're
how
all
I
subjective, right?
Yeah, I'm very clear
We all
on
have
that.
our biases. I have my own sociological bias. I have
Could
my
be your
own,
upbringing, Scott.
I have my own psychological biases. You have your own psychological and sociological biases. The things that put biases away are certain facts. And one of the things that you can do to create to unite upon the people that have bias is we look at the facts. We look at the numbers. We look at the probabilities. So you have a bias, I have a bias.
But I'm based in probability on my experience of how I see the world now.
But look,
Predict what's going to happen.
I'm speaking to you from
way things
a
happen.
strictly kind of like a mathematical perspective now. You have your own sociological bias, I have my own sociological bias. I'm saying
Where have you got your sociological bias from? Have you
From
got it from your
sociology.
teachers, your parents?
Everyone, yes.
Right, so you must understand
So
that we
have you,
come
yeah?
to this
All of us are
conversation
like that.
with a completely different life history.
Indeed, yeah. That's the point. So in order to
And if I was in an African village now, I'd be having a completely different conversation with a person in an African village.
I like that. And had Hitler won, we would be having a completely different discussion. Isn't that
Don't be
right?
bloody good in German.
No,
but
that's
African.
right.
Yeah, I don't even
So
know.
the point is,
Most of all family were German, anyway. Don't worry about that. Forget that.
I mean, the point is, the point really is, putting sociological biases to the side, what we do to resolve sociological biases is we don't speak about things that are sociological necessarily, and we try and unpack the probabilistic things, the things which relate to numbers and facts. Which is why I said, let's put all of these predictions into a machine, a probability machine, and let's look at the numbers. Now, we can actually do that from a mathematical perspective. If I said to you right now, I predict that Arsenal will win 5-1, which is a team, obviously, you know, Arsenal football team. They won 5-1. If I say that, I go to the betting shop, they will look at the numbers.
That's why I have betting shops,
and
there's nothing
exactly, and they
guaranteed.
will give me the odds of that. I'm saying, why don't we apply the same logic when it comes to all of these probabilities, or all of these predictions rather, that the Prophet has predicted?
Let me ask you one thing about them. So this is very, very key to me now.
Yes.
And we may not have time for this, because I understand you want to talk about the things I also want to talk about. I'm going to
Let's finish with this.
This is the issue about the higher thing. Because I see a world, nature, I see trees, I see skies, I've been out in many planes in my life, I'm sure you have probably, and we've seen the miracles of all that, right? When religious people talk, or base it on religion or ideology or whatever, where the logic suddenly, wham, goes away from the humanity, is when they talk about things like the higher deity, heaven and hell, all this. The heaven and hell descriptions are almost human descriptions of what would happen of going from a Mauritius pleasure beach to putting into a furnace, right? You know, and they are pretty much human concepts.
I mean, the Prophet Muhammad said,
so if I'm a naughty boy, hang on a second, if I'm a naughty boy and I'm going to go to hell,
so that's a good way
is the hell a medieval torture chamber? Because this is almost how they explain it. Now, the issue is that but if you look at probability, go to any cemetery in the world now and open the coffins and see what's in there.
Yes.
You'll see probably bones. Hopefully it's been down long enough before you get the rotting bit, but the rotting will happen and there's bones, right? We physically can see that as what happens.
Yes.
When someone dies, they appear to go into a total non-cognitive response with us. So the minute I die, this conversation ends and I don't even know I'm here anymore, right? So that's where we have the difference, because suddenly a religious person to tell the good news story is, don't worry, when you're dying, it's great news, because you're going into a waiting room where some supreme being I've never met in my life is going to sit on a throne, hang on, this is how it's told to me, and will decide whether I can go into the good door or the bad door. Okay, I'm not being flippant, but there's a way, there's a reason. What we see physically in the existence of the world is not that at all. What we see is a rotting body, which either has to be burnt quickly in foreign countries.
No, not in our countries.
With hot countries, I know you're burying this. I'm betting that we burn a lot, and we also have to bury quickly. Very quick. They bury quick in Judaism, very quick, and they bury in Islam. Why? Because of the country's culture they eat. Now, why? Because our body's going to rot. So I know what you're going to tell me about the physical goes and the spiritual, whatever. In my context, we don't see that spiritual bit. As humans, what we see is the physical death. And there's no more discussion going on in a human form between you and I, because the cognitive response is gone. Now, before you were born, the day before you were born, did you have any recollection of this world? Probably not.
Oh, yeah.
So if you didn't have any recollection of the world before, there is also logic in my theory that you go back to the state you're in when you die. You don't know anything.
Can I just respond to what you said?
Because it's the most logical thing.
Alright, so just to conclude, I think it's an interesting debate and a discussion. We've unpacked
I'm still waiting to see it's got. We haven't
So
appeared.
let's talk about the first thing you said. You said that the fact that, I mean, you said that the descriptions of heaven and hell are very much human descriptions.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right. So I will say to you in response to this, that Muhammad said in the hadith, which is Sahih, I think it's Sahih Muslim, said that Jannah, which is heaven, is something which لا يخطر على قلب بشر. Yeah, it's something which is no human heart has been exposed to. In other words, something which you cannot imagine.
So why do they say this in certain contexts? They're talking about wines and virgins and all this.
Yes. So what it is that
human context.
Is these are descriptions, these are imageries that are created so that human beings can be free in their own imagination to imagine the eternal grace or the eternal garden, right? Or the eternal disgrace or the eternal doom.
Right.
But what we as Muslims would maintain is that these descriptions are not in fact the reality, the actual reality of it. The actual reality can only be comprehended when the human physical self is actually put into that new dimension, to that new metaphysical dimension. Now your point of What about those individuals that are in the grave? All we see physically is bones and writing. This is exactly what's mentioned in the Quran. By the way, this is...
Well, it would be, because that's what they were seeing at the time themselves. They were seeing bodies rotting.
What I mean is that this skeptical remark,
quick in the heat as well.
this skeptical remark that you make is the same skeptical remark that was made so many times ago. That when we are bones and when we are bones and and dust, how will God raise us alive again? And the Quran has a response. Do you want to hear the Quranic response? The Quranic response is as follows. Allah says, He is the one He is the one.
But who's saying Allah says?
Allah.
Allah says, or somebody writes that.
No, Allah is speaking it to the Prophet Muhammad through the angel Gabriel, who's speaking it out, and then they're writing it down.
Who wrote this? The angel Gabriel?
No. The companions of the Prophet wrote it out.
Right. Okay. So you understand what my issue is where this is coming from. Is it coming from human being deciding this is what he's going to write to control issues? Look, if I said to you, don't worry about dying tomorrow, because you're going to the most amazing place, you won't fear death anymore. If I said, if you die tomorrow, everything you've enjoyed is going to end, you're not going to know anything again.
Let me tell you something, right? What you've repeated throughout this discussion is that it's human control.
Well, that's what we
that
are.
is what I would say. That is a claim, is an assertion.
But we are humans, and we are controlling
But
this.
what we have to understand is that in order for assertions to have weight, they must have evidences. So what would be a stronger argument for you to have done is to actually come forward with evidences that this Prophet Muhammad must have actually had human inspiration and not divine inspiration. But what you've said is you've made the assertion, you've given the point,
No,
but
because I
you've
don't
not given
see
any
any
evidence.
but the evidence I'm giving to you is here now.
Yes, go on.
Where is the Supreme Being now?
That's not evidence. That's
Yeah, but
what you're saying is.
You can't call that Supreme Being now, can you, in front of me?
No, what I'm saying is.
Why can't you? Because you believe in it. So why doesn't it come to you to shut me up? No, seriously.
Ya Allah.
No, seriously. If it's looking at Ian going, shut up, Ian, right? Why isn't it coming and telling me off? The reason is, in my theory, it's not there.
This is exactly what
Because I've never seen it.
we believe. That the followers of Moses were asked the same thing. They said, Arina Allah jahratan. Let us see Allah plainly. Then.
So how do you see Allah?
No, we don't. We say that this is the whole point of the earth that we live in. It's a test.
How do you see Allah? Because you're the believer, I'm not. How do you see Allah?
I see him physically. I don't see him physically.
So what do you see? What do you see Allah is? Because obviously you believe in him, which I respect. I'm saying I respect
I
that you believe
logically
in.
deduct
Did you see?
that God exists through logic.
Through logic.
Yes.
Right.
And by the way, matter of fact, your principle that you base your argument on is the lack of evidences prove to me that God doesn't exist. What I'm saying to you is lack of evidences are not an evidence. So for you, your standard of
But a
truth.
man-made story trying to give an answer to a story
So according to you-
in human context, which is what I see writings are, is also not a way of answering it.
What I'm
either.
saying is,
Making up a story.
maybe as an atheist, you're saying that I haven't got any evidence. I don't have any
No,
evidence.
it's not about atheism. It's because I can't be an atheist. There's nobody in the world who can be an atheist because you haven't experienced whether there is or isn't. So you have to be agnostic anyway. The issue for me is you can throw a label at someone. I can call you a fanatical Muslim. You could call me an atheist. It's just a term. It doesn't mean anything. Do you know what you are to me, a human being? You're no different to me. You're a human being. It's just your schooling, your background is totally different. I am sure if I've been born into, no, I'll tell you what my concern is. If I had been born not into a westernised London in 1960, which is now next to my age, right? In 1960, into a westernised London with a westernised secular family, with a westernised upbringing, a public school education. So I was told all about body and blood of Christ and didn't believe in any of it, right? Okay, but anyway, they gave me all that, right? For me, okay, I have those views, okay, but I've also travelled and I've questioned the world. You have come from another, I don't know what it is, but you've come from probably another history. You've come from a different history, you have his, so we're the sum of our parts. If, however, I am sure, if I've been born into a very orthodox Jewish family, for example, I'd be having a totally different conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
And that is why I'm saying it's human interaction with
Let me
humans.
tell you something.
For me, that's what it is. Because that divine being hasn't been here to deal with it.
I know you need to leave, so I'm going to give you one last quote.
See, it's not there.
I'm going to give you one last quote, which I want you to really think about. We are all biased. We are all sociologically
There's
biased.
a reason why we're biased.
Listen.
Because human No, humanity. You're biased.
Yes.
Because you're biased. Yes, exactly. No,
Yes.
that's why I'm talking to you.
Yes.
Because we're both. I'm biased.
Yes.
I'm telling you. But the reason, right? You just got my point.
Yes.
The reason we're
Yes,
biased
sociology.
is humanity
Yes, yes.
has made us
Now,
biased to
you know
both
what,
sides.
listen,
That's what I'm trying to
there
say.
is such a
It
thing.
is a human issue.
Bias does not necessitate falsehood. Okay? There's no.
I can create something
What I'm
that's being
saying-
real
Right.
or
No, but
honest.
listen, Ian.
Yeah.
Bias doesn't necessitate falsehood. What we do is we see whose bias is true and whose bias is false. That is
but
why,
people, no, but
throughout this conversation
but
with
somebody
you,
having a bias will only know their truth as the truth.
No.
They won't want the other truth
Listen.
because you've got a bias.
No, but hold
You
on.
couldn't believe in what I believe in because you couldn't see my point.
everyone is
Because you're
biased.
biased.
Everyone is biased. What I'm saying to you is clearly this.
Yeah, that's a human issue.
It is a human issue. You're right, yeah? But what I'm saying is, since we're all biased, what we have to do is we have to rely on evidences and facts. And what I've tried to do in this discussion, whether you accept
No,
what I said or not,
I've listened to you. I'm taking
is
on what you said. And I hope you listen to where I'm coming
approached
from.
the Quranic miracle and
I hope you
this
listen to where I'm coming from.
Yes, I do. I've approached the
trying to say.
Quranic miracle and
Let's not look at the other side.
from one angle, which is the miraculous predictions that are predicted. And I personally believe that is an evidence. Now, whether that fits your standard of truth or not is your decision. And I'll say to you, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Very good.
And
Enjoyed it.
yes, I enjoyed it as well.
If I can add something.